in the sprawling academy of the Galactic Concord, where alien cadets studied under shimmering crystal domes and gravity could be adjusted for species with 3, 4, or no legs at all, a single human stood out like a caffeine-addicted raccoon in a Zen garden. Her name was Cadet Riley Stone, 19 years old, 5'7" of wiry stubbornness, and currently glaring at a reinforced steel and plasma door as though it had personally insulted her family. The door was, in fact, part of the Academy's infamous escape trial, a test designed to measure wit, patience, and problem-solving under pressure. Each cadet was allotted 30 minutes to maneuver through simulated obstacles, locked corridors, and logic puzzles meant to bend minds, but not bones. The rules were simple. Think your way out. Not smash, not sprint, not swear until the walls gave up. Just think. Naturally, Riley had already cracked her knuckles, muttered, "This looks like a bad IKEA assembly project," and prepared to do exactly what humans always did when instructions were unclear: wing it. The alien instructors, perched behind a transparent observation panel, whispered among themselves in various clicks, hisses, and psychic hums. Commander V.Y. Arcan, a centaur-like officer covered in ceremonial armor plating, frowned so deeply his secondary jaw twitched. The human has not begun the puzzle sequence. She stares at the wall as though intimidation might collapse it. Professor Zelix, a feathered scholar who resembled a parrot mated with a rotary fan, fluffed his crest and replied, "Humans have shown unusual approaches before. One once attempted to solve a code lock by singing loudly until the system relented." "That was not success," hissed V.Y. Arcan. "It was entertaining," countered Zelix. Inside the trial chamber, Riley cracked her neck and muttered, 30 minutes? That's generous. I've beaten Mario Kart's Rainbow Road on hard mode in under 5. I got this." She paced around, poked the control panel, tapped on the reinforced seams, and smirked. "Yeah, this is definitely one of those escape rooms they think will break me. Joke's on them, I was raised on escape rooms. Thanksgiving at my grandma's place was basically one. Step 1, find the bathroom. Step 2, dodge the relatives' questions about college." Her humor masked the tiny coil of nerves in her chest. She wasn't just a cadet here. She was the only human cadet in the Academy, the token representative of Earth, a planet the Concord still classified as Death World Grade 3, on account of its absurdly hostile environment and its equally absurdly stubborn inhabitants. To the galaxy, humans were reckless anomalies. To Riley, she was just trying not to flunk out before her second semester. The challenge timer projected onto the wall, 29:42. Riley cracked a grin. "All right, let's see what you've got." She shoved her fingers into the edge seam of the wall, braced her sneakers against the floor, and pulled. Nothing. She tried again, grunting, straining, muttering every bad word she knew in 3 languages, then stepped back, flexed her shoulders, and nodded thoughtfully. "Yep, just like Grandma's house. Time to stop being polite." Behind the observation panel, V.Y. Arcan's tail lashed. What is she attempting? That wall is reinforced with composite alloys rated against plasma cutters. "She is testing structural integrity manually," murmured Zelix, who was now taking frantic notes with one talon. At 27:11, Riley stopped yanking on the seam and instead kicked the panel. Once, twice, thrice. The sound rang out like a drumbeat, echoing through the chamber. "Ow," she hissed, hopping on one foot and clutching her ankle. Okay, bad plan. Don't kick it with the toe." "Got it. Science is about experimentation. Results, wall still solid, my foot less so." She shook it off, leaned against the wall, and muttered under her breath. "They said no breaking. They said think it through. But you know what? Every puzzle has a cheat code." The cheat code, as it turned out, was pure brute force plus just enough stubbornness to make the wall rethink its career choices. Riley found the weakest-looking panel near the base, crouched low, and pressed her shoulder against it. She exhaled, dug her sneakers into the ground, and pushed. Metal groaned faintly. "Oh ho ho," she muttered. "Don't you dare squeak at me like you're innocent." The instructors leaned forward in disbelief as the readings spiked. V.Y. Arcan barked, "Impossible. No cadet has ever attempted direct structural compromise." "She is a death worlder," Zelix chirped. "They have a peculiar definition of impossible." The timer clicked to 25:00. Riley shoved again, harder this time, ignoring the burn in her muscles and the sweat prickling at her brow. The wall bent, minutely, but enough to feed her grin. "Huh, you made a noise. That's the sound of you losing. You hear that, Wall? You're my Tetris line piece, and I'm about to clear you. With a final heave, she braced, pushed, and the entire lower panel buckled inward. The screech of stressed alloy echoed like a stadium cheer. Dust rained from the seams. She slipped her fingers under the warped edge, planted her legs, and pulled with every ounce of human stubbornness her ancestors had left her. The panel ripped free and clanged onto the floor with a thunder that silenced the chamber. Timer, 2400 hours, 01. Riley dusted her hands, adjusted her ponytail, and grinned. Boom. Wall 0. Me 1. And I've still got 24 minutes to go get a snack. In the observation deck, silence reigned. Then Zelix whispered, awestruck. She broke the wall. She escaped through brute force. Vyarkin snarled, his tail thrashing so hard it cracked a panel behind him. This violates every principle of the trial. And yet, Zelix said softly, she has succeeded. Riley crawled through the jagged opening, brushing dust from her jacket. Note to self, she muttered. Space Academy walls? Not earthquake-proof. Maybe don't build your prison cells with the galactic equivalent of drywall. She stood, cracked her knuckles again, and added, that wasn't even my final form. Somewhere alarms blared. She looked up innocently. Oh, did I break something important? Classic me. The observation deck erupted into frantic debate, but Riley barely noticed. She was already stretching, humming the theme from Jurassic Park under her breath, and strolling down the corridor she wasn't supposed to access for at least another 20 minutes. The central conflict had just been born, not between Riley and the Academy's challenges, but between humanity's unshakable instinct to bend every rule and the galaxy's desperate attempt to maintain order. And as Riley's grin widened at the sound of guards scrambling to intercept her, the truth was clear. This was only the beginning of chaos. The instant Riley stumbled through the ragged hole in the wall, a blaring alarm filled the chamber like a broken smoke detector left to die in an apartment stairwell. She clapped her hands over her ears and shouted, okay, that's a little dramatic. Y'all act like I blew up the reactor core. It was just a wall. Dust streaked her uniform. Her sneakers left scuffs across the pristine floor, and her grin stretched wide enough to make the alien observers question whether this human was celebrating victory or actively taunting them. The corridor beyond was supposed to be revealed only after a cadet solved 3 sequential logic puzzles involving holographic glyphs and sonic harmonics. Riley had skipped the entire process by sheer force, as if the universe itself was just another cheap lock to jiggle until it opened. She jogged down the hallway, still humming John Williams' score from Jurassic Park, and glanced at the glowing timer now projected in midair. 23 minutes left. She wagged a finger at it. See? Y'all gave me half an hour, but I'm treating this like a drive-through. Efficiency, people. Behind the one-way viewing wall, Commander Vyarkan's voice cracked like a whip. This is unacceptable. The chamber is compromised. Shut it down immediately. Professor Zelix, still furiously scribbling notes with a talon dipped in ink, only cocked his feathery head. And deny ourselves the opportunity to observe? Look at her. Every step reveals a different form of improvisation. Improvisation was a polite word for chaos. Riley reached a junction where beams of coherent light pulsed across the floor, meant to test a cadet's patience and timing. Alien cadets would usually freeze here, study the rhythm, and carefully dance across like chess pieces. Riley squinted, muttered, laser tag, huh, and sprinted straight through. The beams flared, zapping against her arms and legs. She yelped once, twice, then cackled through the sting. That's it. Y'all ever licked a 9-volt battery? Feels exactly the same. Man, aliens really don't know how to build a taser. In the observation deck, half the instructors flinched in shared sympathy while Zelix leaned closer. She perceives pain differently, he whispered. She disregards it, Vyarkan growled. Such behavior is irrational. Survival requires caution, not recklessness. Yet the sensors told a different story. Riley's heart rate spiked, but she showed no hesitation. She had cleared the lasers in seconds, far faster than the average attempt. She shook the sting from her arms and muttered, note to self, don't wear short sleeves next time. Space lasers bite. Then she carried on, undaunted. Every new obstacle became another reminder that Riley Stone didn't operate within the Concorde's definitions of reason. A shifting floor panel, meant to collapse if too much weight rested on one side. She jumped across with a reckless whoop and landed so hard the platform's delicate balance system fried instantly. A rotating blade designed to scare cadets into slowing down? She ducked once, rolled under it, then slapped the edge like she was tagging out in a baseball game. She even paused at one point to mock applaud the holographic riddle projected on the wall. Nice try, but I already failed algebra. Ain't gonna get me with word problems. The alien instructors exchanged looks of increasing despair. For decades, the escape trial had tested the best cadets from dozens of worlds. It measured control, composure, and intellectual refinement. This human cadet was transforming it into a demolition derby, tearing through delicate systems as though she believed the environment itself was a stubborn opponent to be bullied into submission. And yet, she was winning. By the 15-minute mark, Riley had bypassed nearly every designed obstacle and stood before the final barrier, a sealed blast door of reinforced alloy, coded to open only after the previous systems confirmed successful completion. She planted her hands on her hips, tilted her head, and said, "Oh, come on. Yo really thought I'd just sit here waiting for permission?" The blast door loomed 3 meters tall, lights pulsing across its surface like a heartbeat. Riley tested the seam with her fingertips, found no give, then sighed dramatically. Guess it's time for the cheat code again. She stepped back, cracked her knuckles, then sprinted forward with a shoulder charge that rattled the chamber like an earthquake. The door groaned, shifted, and spat sparks from its hinges. Riley staggered back, rubbing her shoulder. Ow. Okay, note to self, don't lead with the collarbone. That's dumb. Next attempt, leading with Texas stubbornness. She braced again, took another run, and slammed into the door with a roar that echoed across the chamber. This time the hinge cracked. The alloy dented inward, like an aluminum can under a boot. Riley spat a strand of hair from her mouth, grinning through the ache in her muscles. There it is. You're mine now. The instructors shouted over each other. Vyrkin bellowed, "Stop her before she destroys the facility." Zelix only scribbled faster, eyes wide in wonder. Remarkable. She does not seek solutions within the framework provided. She redefines the framework entirely. Riley rammed the door a final time. With a thunderous shriek, the alloy tore free and slammed to the ground. Dust billowed, alarm screamed, and Riley strolled through the gap as casually as if she were stepping onto her front porch. She glanced at the timer. 17 minutes remained. Beat my own estimate. Somebody better be waiting on the other side with a medal. Or at least a sandwich. When she emerged into the control hall, the silence was palpable. Rows of alien cadets stared at her through the glass, jaws slack, mandibles clicking, eye stalks trembling. She was bruised, dust-covered, grinning like a lunatic, and victorious. Riley lifted a hand in a mock salute. "Ladies, gentlemen, and whatever else y'all identify as trial completed. In style. Might want to fix the walls, though. Little flimsy." The silence broke into a cacophony of voices. Instructors demanded disciplinary hearings. Cadets whispered rumors that would spread across the entire academy before the day was out. The council's monitors already flickered with priority alerts about Death Worlder instability. Riley only leaned against the broken blast door, catching her breath, her grin refusing to fade. She wasn't blind to the stares, nor the weight of what she'd just done. But beneath the sarcasm and bravado, she felt something else stir, a recognition that she had just painted a target on her back. She had proven humanity's reputation, and perhaps made it worse. Still, she muttered under her breath, better a target than a nobody. The instructors began shouting for containment squads. Cadets pressed against the viewing glass, eyes wide with awe or terror. And Riley, brushing dust from her jacket, raised her eyebrows at the chaos she'd left in her wake. "What? I followed the rules. Y'all said escape. You didn't say how." The moment balanced on a knife's edge, half triumph, half impending disaster. Riley's smile widened anyway. 2 minutes flat, and I didn't even break a sweat. Okay, maybe just one wall. By the time the dust from a shattered blast door settled, Riley Stone had become a living headline. Word of her 2-minute escape streaked through the academy faster than an unsecured data file on an open network. Aliens of every shape and appendage leaned into whispered conversations, their eye stalks or mandibles trembling with the question that none dared to voice too loudly. What kind of species solved the 30-minute test with brute force and laughter? Riley walked through the mess hall later that day with the same swagger she had carried into the chamber, but her ears caught the sharp edge of silence that followed her. A group of insectoid cadets stopped chittering mid-sentence. a crystalline being folded its limbs tight as she passed, as if she radiated danger like a reactor leak. She plopped her tray down at a table and grinned at the nearest group of aliens. "Don't stop talking on my account. I'm not contagious." One of the insectoids twitched nervously. "Do humans routinely dismantle reinforced alloy with their shoulders?" Riley bit into a protein bar and shrugged. "Only when vending machines eat our money. You'd be surprised how motivating it is to fight for your last dollar." The table went silent again. To her, it was just a quip. To them, it was a threat disguised as humor. She chewed and rolled her eyes. "Relax. If I was dangerous, you'd know. You'd also be missing a wall." Elsewhere, the Academy's instructors gathered in urgent conference. Commander Vyr paced so violently his hoofbeats cracked the crystalline floor. The human disregarded every protocol. She turned a logic exercise into structural collapse. "This cannot be tolerated." Professor Zelix ruffled his feathers. Ink stains splattered across his crest from furious note-taking. Yet her method worked. Efficiency beyond prediction, resilience beyond our models, and charisma. Look at the cadet chatter. Half the Academy fears her. Half idolizes her. This influence cannot be ignored. The Council of Overseers convened in haste, hollow screens flickering with faces from across the Concord. An aquatic senator with translucent gills sputtered through his translator. "If one adolescent can dismantle your training apparatus, what of their armies? What of Earth itself? Containment must be considered." "Containment," Vyr growled. "At last sense." But Zelix lifted a wing. "Containment or recruitment? The Concord thrives on diversity. The Deathworlders bring unconventional strengths." The debate burned hotter than plasma. Some called humans reckless, a destabilizing contagion. Others argued they were innovators necessary for the survival of a galaxy too rigid in its ways. And through it all, Riley sat in the mess hall, utterly oblivious that her flippant grin was igniting a political firestorm. Her fellow cadets, however, knew something had changed. A wiry amphibian slid into the seat across from her, his gills fluttering nervously. "Teach me," he blurted. Riley blinked. "Teach you what?" "How to fail algebra. I'm an expert." "No," the amphibian insisted, leaning closer. "Teach me your methods. The human way. The shortcuts." Riley smirked. "Shortcuts? Buddy, we don't call them that. We call it thinking outside the box. Sometimes literally smashing the box." She leaned back and tapped her tray with one finger. "Lesson 1, always carry duct tape. Universal problem solver. Lesson 2, if it moves and it shouldn't, duct tape it. If it doesn't move and it should, WD-40. Several nearby cadets craned their heads to listen, captivated by her strange gospel. Riley realized she had an audience and leaned in like a late-night TV host. Lesson 3, don't overthink it. Sometimes the fastest way out is the stupidest one. But if it works, it works. The amphibian scribbled furiously on a datapad while the insectoid from earlier tilted his head. "This philosophy, is it taught on your world?" Riley smirked. "Taught? Nah. It's inherited. Like bad knees and sarcasm." The laughter that followed was awkward but genuine. And as it rippled through the hall, Riley noticed the tension shift. Some cadets looked at her with awe instead of fear, others with jealousy, but none could ignore her. She had become the Academy's storm, unpredictable, dangerous, magnetic. The overseers, watching from concealed monitors, were less amused. Reports flew across their channels. One declared that humans should be expelled immediately before their methods infected the rest. Another insisted they must be studied as weapons or allies. Each message escalated the stakes higher, until one desperate voice finally said aloud what others had only whispered: if they cannot be contained, they must be controlled. And if they cannot be controlled... The sentence trailed off into silence, but the implication hung heavy. Riley, unaware of the council's debate, leaned back in her chair, balancing it on two legs with reckless ease. She tossed the empty wrapper of her protein bar at a bin across the hall. It bounced once, missed, and hit the floor. She shrugged. "Not every shot's a slam dunk." The insectoid tilted his head again. "Slam dunk." She smirked. "Basketball. Earth sport. Big ball, little hoop, lots of trash talk. It's an art form." Another cadet, crystalline and cautious, spoke for the first time. "Perhaps this is why your species is feared. You treat destruction as play. You treat risk as jest." Riley considered that, her grin fading just enough to let honesty slip through. We treat it like that, because if we didn't, we'd never survive our own world. You ever tried growing up with tornadoes, earthquakes, mosquitoes, and reality TV? Humor's the only armor we got. The cadets around her exchanged uneasy glances, unsure whether to laugh or shudder. But Riley's expression softened into something almost earnest. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to break things just to break them. But when the wall's between you and freedom, you don't negotiate. You move it, one way or another. The conversation left her tablemates unsettled, but strangely enlightened. And as Riley stood, stretching the stiffness from her shoulders, she noticed the way their eyes followed her. Not just with curiosity, but with the dawning realization that her way might just change the Academy forever. Somewhere above, the Overseer's debate reached its conclusion, a secret vote to draft protocols limiting Earth's integration. To them, Riley Stone was not a cadet, but a warning shot. Humanity, with all its grit and absurdity, threatened the fragile balance of galactic order. And yet, as Riley strode from the mess hall humming a tune from Die Hard, she felt only the rising hum of anticipation in her chest. She had rattled their cages. She had made them see her. For better or worse, the galaxy had started paying attention. That awareness hung in the air, sharp as static before a storm. The Academy was no longer a neutral proving ground. It was a battlefield of ideas, and Riley, whether she wanted it or not, had just declared war. The trial chamber's wreckage had barely cooled before the summons arrived. Riley Stone stood in the Academy's grand atrium, the light of a dozen suns refracted through crystalline panels, as she was ushered before the assembled council. Rows of alien dignitaries towered above her, each perched in their preferred environments, floating thrones, water-filled orbs, reinforced nests. They gazed down with a blend of fear and fascination, their voices murmuring in languages that rippled across the translation field like static. Riley, dust still clinging to her cadet uniform, raised one brow and muttered just loud enough to be heard. Kinda feels like a school principal's office. Just with more tentacles. Commander Vyarkan, bristling with indignation, slammed a hoof against the marble floor. Cadet Stone, you are charged with reckless disregard for Academy property, violation of trial protocol, and endangering your peers. How do you plead? Riley squinted up at him, then leaned casually on the podium. Well, let's see. Door was locked. I wanted out. I got out. If that's a crime, then yeah, guilty. But efficient. A ripple of disbelief ran through the chamber. The aquatic senator sputtered. Efficient. You bypassed every safeguard, destroyed a blast door, and trivialized a sacred test. Sacred test. Riley snorted. Buddy, it was an escape room with bad lighting. You want sacred? Try surviving Texas barbecue seasoned without heat stroke. Half the audience gasped. A few cadets hidden in the gallery stifled laughter. Professor Zelix, feather crest quivering with excitement, interjected before Vyarkan could explode. Observe, Council. She did not hesitate, nor deliberate endlessly. She acted decisively, and in doing so revealed flaws in our systems. Is that not a form of success? Success. Vyarkan roared. She reduced our trial chamber to rubble. Yeah, Riley cut in, her grin sharp. And if your trial chamber collapses after a couple shoulder checks, maybe it deserved an update. Y'all got insurance, right? The council erupted in overlapping protests, translated into a chaotic jumble. Words like containment, banishment, and death worlder threat echoed through the chamber. Riley crossed her arms and tilted her head, letting the storm rage around her. Beneath her bravado, she felt the weight of the moment, the way every eye lingered on her, the way her every word tilted the future of Earth's place among the stars. Then the interruption came. The hollow screens above flickered, hijacked by an unauthorized signal. The image of a masked alien figure filled the air, voice metallic and sharp. The Concord must act before it is too late. Death worlders are contagion. They must be eradicated before they spread. The chamber froze. Riley's grin faded, replaced by a cold, focused stare. Well, she muttered, that's rude. Guards scrambled, overseers barked orders, but the broadcast continued. Images flashed, Riley breaking the wall, shrugging off the lasers, grinning through every obstacle. The voice declared, this is proof. Their species threatens order itself. Strike now or regret it. The feed cut, leaving a silence thicker than stone. Vyarkan seized the moment. You see? Even the dissenters recognized the danger. Humans cannot be allowed to remain here. For the first time, Riley dropped the casual act. She stepped forward, planting both hands on the podium, voice carrying through the hall with uncharacteristic steadiness. Listen close. You can call me reckless, call me dangerous, call me whatever you want. But don't confuse survival with malice. Where I'm from, walls don't care if you're polite. Storms don't wait for permission. If you sit still and think too long, you die. We learn to move, to fight, to laugh through it, because fear doesn't help when the tornado's already in your backyard. That's not a threat, it's just who we are. Her words rippled through the chamber. Some sneered, others leaned forward, but none could dismiss her. For a moment, even VYR faltered. Then chaos returned, not from debate, but from the sound of explosions rattling the outer walls of the academy. The rogue faction had moved from rhetoric to action. Sirens wailed. Guards flooded the hall. The council panicked, their dignified composure fracturing into a scramble of limbs, wings, and fins. Riley didn't wait for instructions. She grabbed the nearest chair, hefted it like a makeshift weapon, and barked, "All right, who's with me?" Cadets, those who had listened to her in the mess hall, those who had secretly admired her defiance, rallied. The insectoid who had once asked about her strength chittered nervously, but stepped forward. The amphibian who had begged for lessons gripped a stun staff, with shaking hands. Even the crystalline being moved with surprising resolve. Riley grinned despite the alarms. See? Teamwork. Not so scary when we do it together. The battle spilled through the academy's corridors. Rogue infiltrators stormed the halls, but Riley met them head-on. She taped a cracked weapon back together mid-fight with a roll of duct tape from her pocket, muttering, "Never leave Earth without it." She slid across a polished floor, swung her chair like a Louisville slugger, and knocked an enemy flat. Between swings she shouted, "Cover me," though she never waited to see if anyone did. Her cadets followed, stumbling at first, then matching her pace, their fear drowned by her reckless courage. When the last infiltrator fell, and the alarms quieted, the academy stood scarred but standing. Riley leaned on her chair, panting, hair disheveled, uniform torn. She glanced around at the wreckage, then at the cadets who now looked at her not with fear, but with something closer to respect. The council reconvened in shaken silence. VYR tried to speak, but the words caught in his throat. It was Zelix who finally said, unorthodox, dangerous. Yet today she defended us all. Perhaps the galaxy needs such unpredictability. Riley wiped sweat from her brow, then smirked. Told you I'd pass your little test. Just had to grade it my way. The chamber rippled with uneasy laughter, relief mingling with dread. They could no longer deny her. They could no longer deny humanity. As the session closed and the council debated their next move, Riley stepped out into the twilight of the academy courtyard, bruised but unbroken. She sipped from a soda she'd stashed earlier, looked at the sky, and muttered to herself, 2 minutes, one wall, a couple of explosions. Not a bad first semester. And though she laughed, she felt it in her bones. The galaxy had only just begun to realize what humanity's presence meant. And the storm she had started was far from over.